All right, welcome back to Rad Dads. This is your host, Micah Sherman. We are officially in season 2 now. We've got a season under our belts already. And if you've tuned into the first season, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun getting to hear all those dads. And so feel free to share those interviews with dads you know. Today we got a fun interview. It's very unique because we are actually just meeting my rad dad today. We're meeting in person for the first time. So it'll be unique and fun. I know more about him, I think, than he knows about me. But I'm going to introduce him right now and we'll introduce his story. So Jeff Hamilton, welcome to Rad Dads.
Micah, thank you, man. It's great to have another Central Coaster, even though you're only there for a bit of time. There's just a few of us that understand the beauty of living on the Central Coast.
I know, it's
and
a gem.
Yeah, it is for sure. But OC's not too bad either, is it?
It's not. It's maybe a little busier, but it's
Yeah.
still we're at the beach pretty much. So right, it's awesome.
That's right.
So shout out to Luke Cece. He's the one that connected us. Jeff runs a pretty cool program organization that we'll get into in a little bit that I think you guys are going to really like hearing about. But so here's the scouting report. Jeff, the scouting report is when I do my research and just introduce you to everyone. So, and then you can confirm or deny if any of them is
Did my
true or
police
false.
report come up or anything
A little
like that?
bit, yeah, but I'll leave that out of the interview.
Okay.
So Jeff is lead pastor at Hills Church in Mission Viejo. That's right now we're in Mission Viejo at his home. Jeff is a pastor, a coach, a consultant. I'm sure many other things as well. A dad, obviously. And you and your wife, Jamie, have been married since 1992?
1992.
Which is 31 years.
November 7th, 31 years, yeah.
3 decades of marriage, which is awesome. Very impressive. The Hamiltons have had the privilege of serving families over 30 years in pastoral ministry. So does that mean that you got married and then you jumped right into being a pastor?
Actually, I started in vocational ministry in 1988. So while I was in college, I was a youth pastor. And then when I graduated from Bible college then I took a denominational role working with camps and training youth pastors and moved back east. And it was actually my sister, 2 years into it, that my sister introduced me to my wife.
Wow.
They were going to church together.
That's cool.
Here in Southern California. So when I was on a trip coming back home to visit my family, I went to church that day and with my sister and met Jamie. And within like 2 weeks, we kind of put this thing on the fast track.
No way. Church is a great place to meet your spouse. I met my spouse at church too. So I highly recommend it.
Well, it comes even better when she's your sister's friend.
That helps.
Right?
Yeah.
And so,
right.
we, in fact, we were only together face to face over a 6-month period from the day we met to the day we married. We were only face to face for 30 days.
Wow.
We were. I was living in the Charlotte area, North Carolina at the time, and she was still here in Anaheim, and so dating long distance. Now back in those, right?
Sure.
You have to remember that's pre-cell phone,
Yeah,
right? So like we had real telephone bills that would come in like $250 when you're making
costs money.
yeah, when you're making like $1,000 a month,
right?
And a quarter of it is on your courtship. But that gave us a great opportunity to really get to know each other's heart in a different way than maybe happens over dinner in a movie.
Sure. Yeah, you got probably some more intentional conversations faster, and that's helpful if you're trying to find your spouse.
Yeah, exactly right.
Cool, and we were just talking about how I got to ask your family a little bit about you, and if they could describe you in a couple words, what would they say? And they said that you are passionate, you are an encourager, and you make it your goal to equip people to live purposeful lives. I hope my family says things like that.
Those are really kind. And you know, I think that's the kind of thing. One of the things I do, like as a coach, right, working with high school kids, is I always get to go up to the parents and compliment them on what I see from their kids. Because what we see as parents, or what your spouse sees of you, or your kids tell you, they kind of tell you one thing, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact that when asked by somebody else and
Sure.
they give you that
Yeah.
kind of like, that's the greatest compliment that you can
Totally.
receive. And
Yeah.
so I'm grateful for my wife. I mean, I have no greater supporter than her. And my kids too. So, in fact, with Dad Academy, tell you the truth, Micah, I ask my kids, my kids, but 25 and 27, I ask them, hey, if this is not cool with you, if I'm
Right.
presenting myself as something that I'm not,
Sure, yeah.
it's your responsibility to let me know.
Yeah.
And I'll back away.
Yeah.
If I don't have your endorsement
Totally, yeah.
on this. And I'm grateful that
Right.
even though, I don't think any kid gets out of their relationship with their parents without requiring a little bit of therapy.
Sure. Yeah, we're not perfect, right?
But they've been very affirming of this process too.
Yeah, that probably makes you more, when you have your family support, it makes what you do even more passionate, because you're
Well, it adds validity.
Yeah.
Like in our space in this dad world, right?
Yep.
We have a lot of guys who present themselves as like dad coaches and
Yeah.
things like this. But if your kid's only like 9,
Right.
like the hardest part of parenting is still in front of you.
Sure, yeah.
And while my wife and I had a very intentional approach to parenting, and while I helped encourage other parents as a youth pastor and student ministries pastor, like I didn't feel confident talking to dads about developing a strategy until I saw whether or not the one that I had works. I mean, you're sitting across from me right now. I'm a former college athlete, and I know as much about health and dieting and all that kind of stuff as anybody.
Sure.
I could totally. But if you look at me, you're like, oh, that guy he could take a little bit better care of himself, right? And so nobody's going to hire me as their personal trainer right now. Well, I think sometimes when it comes to being, when we're looking for mentors, when we're looking for models, for example, we need to have somebody who's not just a step or two ahead of us, but somebody who say, hey, I've been down this road before. And these are the things that are gonna work, and then to have a community that we follow that path together with. So
yeah, definitely having that experience, right? Of a mentor that you really need and want, so that you can ask the questions that you're going through. So you mentioned Dad Academy. Let's get straight into it. You run this program called Dad Academy. Can you kind of tell us what it is and how did it even get started?
Yeah, in 2015, I had a couple young dads in my church, and I was in the process of getting my master's degree in leadership, and I'd always had an eye for like organization and strategy and things like this, and I started thinking like, man, being a dad's the only thing that you do in a man's life without a plan.
Sure.
Right? If you're going to diet, you have a plan. If you have a exercise program, you have a plan. If you have a financial goals, you have a plan, right? But being a dad, like, I started thinking when we moved back out to California in 2000 to plant a church, like every church planner, I got a job at a coffee shop, right? To meet people and whatever. And that coffee shop, before they made me go through 30 hours of training, right? About culture, about coffee, about all this stuff, before they let me press the automatic brew button on the machine, right? But on March 1st, just 1996, they just hand you a baby.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Right?
Seems like there's something missing.
Yeah. And we read some good books and we had some good encouragement, and both of us, we had good examples. But I wanted to help our dads be confident in who God's designed them to be. Because to be honest, if God didn't love you and didn't trust you, he wouldn't give you a baby. Right? And so, like, it's a pretty awesome privilege that God gives us when he entrusts children to us. Yeah. And I'm not saying that those who walk through different seasons and maybe don't have kids yet or are unable to in some way, that got exactly right. Yeah. Right. But I'm saying that when we have this responsibility, that we need to be intentional. And so I feel that men are most successful when they know what's expected and they have a plan to accomplish it. So I started as a little small group that I started doing some of these principles together, and then I started getting invited to other churches to maybe do it over a weekend or a seminar. And then once COVID hit and all pastors and churches became production studios, I was like, man, this is the time now. And it was just the right time to be able to put the manual together and have it available to a broader audience. And now it's the 7 15-minute videos are all online, and I don't have to be present. It can just be a dad who has a passion for getting other guys together. And in church, like all we do is really give excuses to get people together. And if we can surround guys together around this amazing purpose that really research shows that when dads are disconnected from their children, they're disconnected from their purpose. And so having something like Dad Academy to gather guys around this dream that they have in their heart and to build relationship with each other and create a community, like, bro, I think that is a win-win. And it's a privilege just to be a part of what happens. And there's great dad resources out there, right? That are kind of like inspirational, that kind of give you some ideas. But Dad Academy is one where you actually walk away with a dad plan. These are the skills I'm going to pass on to my kids. These are the traditions I'm going to build into my family. And it gives you a sense for you and your family of what kind of rails you're running on that God set before you.
That's awesome. So it just started with you getting together with a few guys.
Yeah, with a plan, and as they gave me feedback, and we just kept sharpening it. But from the very beginning, it seemed to get some traction. The biggest limitation was my ability to facilitate it. And now it's not dependent on
awesome.
me. Yeah,
because you don't have to be there, but you can be.
Well, you get a chance to be like so many other things. When the other day I had to replace the ice maker in my refrigerator for the 4th of July. We had some people coming over, and I've had to learn how to become handy. But thankfully, I could go to YouTube, and there was a dude who actually, with my model, replaced the ice maker. So I ordered the part. I followed the instructions. And I had ice yesterday on the 4th of July, Man, can we do that with dads? All the just make the resource available so that you can be confident that with the skills you have, you can be who you want to be.
And having a plan and then getting guys together like that, those two combinations are very powerful. And how often do dads get together purposefully and with a plan? I think is solid.
Well, since you have like a kind of, I would assume that a lot of your audience, or some of your audience at least, is faith-based, right? And so at my age, maybe recently, there was the movie that was out, Jesus Revolution, that talked about this amazing thing that happened based out of Orange County and really across the U.S. about how God just began to capture the hearts of people. And I've seen a lot of amazing things in church and God doing things around the community. But in the book of Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, and Malachi is speaking to the Nehemiah generation, And the picture of Nehemiah, so awesome. Build this wall for your family, The trowel and the sword. And Nehemiah speaks to this generation. He goes, listen, when God is preparing to establish his kingdom, look for this. I'll turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. And so if we really want to see God do something important, it starts in our family. And to have the kingdom there and to have men, that same thing, The trowel in one hand and the sword in the other. And I think Dad Academy gives men those kind of tools so that kind of thing can start to happen.
Yeah, that's exciting to me. And I know I'm just getting to know Dad Academy, but to have have a resource that's something I can actually study and do with other guys to improve myself as a dad that's, chasing after Jesus. I don't know too many other dad academies. You're the first that I've heard of. So it's exciting. So let's pause on that for a minute.
Yeah.
Being a pastor, husband, dad, consultant, coach, your coach, it's a lot of different hats you wear.
Yeah.
So how do you make time to do each well and kind of create some balance? How's that been?
I think the thing that I've had to do in my life is to understand what God has called me to do. Earlier, when I was a young leader, just growing and developing, a mentor from afar by the name of John Maxwell says, you do everything you have to do up until the age of 40 so you can do everything you want to do for the rest of your life. And, one of the things is that I've never pastored a really large church of multiple hundreds of people. And so because I don't have to manage a lot of staff, because I have an approach to that job that I feel that God has called me and gifted me to do things a certain way and to lead things, that the demand of my church or my primary occupation is such that I have some control over what those time constraints were. And so really for 25 years, my focus was caring for first of all, caring for the first congregation. When I get to heaven, God's not going to ask me about how big is your church. He's going to say,
family.
That's right. How's Jamie, Justin, and Jordan? And so my wife and I, we partnered together on that. She was able to be a stay-at-home mom. We made incredible sacrifices for that to happen. But then as my kids got into high school and out of high school, I started doing this, and I started thinking about ways that I could just make an impact. So the church is one dynamic. I love pulpit discipleship, but discipleship is so much more. So I love inputting into men's lives, and I thought coaching beyond a dad, a coach is one of the most influential people in a young man's life, right? Because it also speaks at the right time when he's being shaped. And think about how athletics helps to develop skills and things like this.
Everything.
So I was an athlete through college, still consider myself one.
What sport?
Basketball.
Come on. All right.
Played basketball, a little NAIA school, and then I played even like baseball till I was 45 years old. Hardball.
I gotta ask, what school?
It's now called Life Pacific University.
Okay.
And so
it was called what?
It was called Life Bible College when I went there.
Gotcha. Well, I played at Cal Baptist, so at some point we were both NAIA.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, one of the few times I dunked consistently in warm-ups was at Cal Baptist in the old barn, because that thing would bounce like a trampoline, man.
There you go.
So I went into coaching, but also consulting. I've always been a coach. So whether it was helping people like sort through, like strength finders and different tests like this. One of my skills is I'm a dot connector. I can see how that needs to connect with that, or how this relationship needs to connect with this relationship. And so I was already doing that with churches that I knew, pastors that I knew, small businesses that I knew. And then once all that kind of happened, then I just put it all together in Dad Academy. So the way to keep balance in all this, as best you can, number one is that make sure that you're doing what God is doing. He doesn't promise to bless anything that he hasn't called you to.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And so I just try to make sure that the things that I'm doing are the things that I'm called to do. And part of the people who help me decide that is the people who I live with. And so
having good communication with those people.
Yeah. And Jamie has been nothing but supportive of, I mean, the most unsung hero in the church is usually the pastor's wife, right? Because she works full time for the church too, and just doesn't get paid for it. And she carries the burden.
That's a good point.
And a bigger burden for our family. And so she lets me that's the other part to balance, is that after being married 31 years, we've really learned to value who the other person is, because we're really different.
Sure.
We're really different.
Right.
And, she grew up in a household that was all girls. Her dad was raised by a single mom.
Okay.
And a great, great man, but just lived, knew how to connect with.
Right.
One of our discussions not too long ago was I was, speaking with my wife. I was like, honey, you do not speak man. Just because I'm direct and I'm forceful doesn't mean that I'm mad or angry, sure. Right? It's the way that guys relate to each other under pressure. And, obviously I don't speak woman very much and we've learned to navigate those things, but she values the way that God makes me.
Sure.
She doesn't necessarily see that as a competition, and it took me a long time. Still not very good at it, but I was well into being married 20 years before I really started to acknowledge how amazing she is. Mm-hmm. And now at this stage, I don't care what's really for the rest of my life. I want to see her and my son and daughter. I want to see them they gave a lot of time for God to do a work in me and to support me in what I've been trying to be. Now that's what I don't know if I'm doing very good, but that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like you're doing pretty good so far. So Jeff, I asked your wife to give if she had any cool stories about you or you guys, and she gave me a couple. So just to kind of add into our podcast, can you tell us the story about first Justin and the marker?
Oh, so this was back in the day. I think Jordan had just been born. We weren't far away from that, and Justin's probably 2 or 3. So he got up early, as little kids do, and I took him downstairs on a Saturday morning and just set him in his little playroom, and he was pretty quiet and chill, and I'm watching ESPN.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I thought, man, it's too quiet, right? All you dads know,
you know that quiet.
Exactly
right. You know something's
and
wrong.
I turned around in the corner, and he had found a Sharpie.
Oh, no.
And had just started drawing on all of the walls in the dining room.
Blank canvas.
And I literally had that
oh, no.
like I couldn't breathe. It was all the life was sucked out of me. And the only thing I could say was like, Justin, your mom is going to kill me. and that's the thing that Jamie woke up to, right? Like, what happened, right? No. She came downstairs, and the whole living room is just Sharpie. And I think the best thing was, like, after the initial shock, that we just, like, laughed because, like, there's nothing else you can do, right?
What are you going to do?
And he was so proud of himself, like, look at what I've done, Those are the best, man.
And that's the story you tell over and over again, right? To your friends and family.
That one, and real quick, Daddy's Gel. We walked in, I've got my hat on today, but one of the things that I had been known for is this like hairdo. And so she walked in and got him up after, and she's like, "What have you done?" And Justin stands in his crib and he's all, "Daddy Gel."
Oh.
And she looked over, and the Vaseline had been sitting right next. And he had coated his entire head in Vaseline. It was so bad that Jamie calls her sister, who's a hairstylist, like, "What do we do?" We're living in Nashville at the time. And she washed it like 3 times. It was dawn trying to get it
take
out.
Your time.
But,
a couple days.
Daddy's Gel. That was...
It's funny how kids... I've talked to my wife about how our kids, especially when they're younger, relate certain things to you. So Daddy's Gel. For me, it's Daddy's Coffee, because I have it every morning. So it's funny, and it makes you think twice about different habits and things you have that your kids are connecting and relating to you that are worth thinking, is this what I want them to remember?
Yes.
So we could go deeper down there with that, but we won't. But it makes you think. So you're currently now, Justin and Jordan. Justin, I think I heard, is in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, he's 27. He's been
Okay.
married up a year, and youth pastor up in Santa Cruz.
Okay. And then what's Jordan up to?
Yeah, so my daughter Jordan, she's 25. Like we mentioned earlier, she's one of the kids who lost graduation to COVID. There's also a whole story of how God's kind of been at work in her life in these last few years. But like so many Gen Z millennials, right, she's got a million different hustles going on. So she works at a gym in the spa area. She is a social media director for a music venue and artist collective based out of New York. And she is also a photographer. In fact, if you've seen any of the alabaster versions of the Bible, this company does this kind of magazine version of all the different books of the Bible, and she's one of the featured photographers in that, and does wedding photography as well. But she's looking forward to just getting like one job and getting that happening, and she'll be heading out sometime this fall before the end of the year. She's excited after, no 25-year-old wants to be still living at home with mom and dad, but I have treasured every minute that we get to have her here. So, she's there's nobody that I love hanging out with more than my kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. So at this point of your life, Jeff, what do you enjoy most about being a husband, and what do you most enjoy about being a dad?
What do I enjoy most about being a husband and a dad? Well, as long as we are still on Jordan for a minute, you asked me a funny story about Justin. I need to tell the story about Jordan.
Go for it.
Jordan ran in, she's probably, again, 3 years old, and Orange County family, right? We were a Disney family.
Okay.
So we had passes back in the day when it was only like $99
those were
a
the
person.
good old days.
Right? When you could take your kids all day. And she ran into the room, and she is all, Daddy, it's Snow White. And the hair all around her face is soaking wet. And we're like, what? Snow White? She's all, come here. And we follow her into the bathroom, where she proceeds to put her head in the toilet and sing, I'm wishing for the one I love, right? But her hair is all down in the toilet water, but she likes the echo of singing into the well, right? And so she's been singing ever since. And, that's the other thing that we're looking forward to happening for her. She, too, is a music artist on Spotify, and that really is her passion. And she leads worship at churches around here as well. So
cool.
What I love most about being a husband and a dad, as a dad, the best has been watching them discover who God has made them to be and is making them to be. As you mentioned earlier, it is a great time when you get to be the consultant and no longer the boss. And watching them have the skills to navigate the difficult things in life. I think one thing we underestimate about becoming adults and growing up is life is supposed to get easier, and it doesn't, right? The only thing that Jesus really promised us is, in this world you will have trouble. Right? If you start reading the epistles, it's all about perseverance and patience and hope. And hope is that work that you put in, not to earn the promise, but acting as if you already have it, right? And so they know how to persevere. They know how to believe. They know what to do when their faith is challenged. And they're not afraid of seasons of doubt or question. And I think that's a great joy. And watching them go through all of the different stages, and watching me grow as a dad, and my expectations of what I want. As a husband, I think the greatest joy is that God knows who you need in a spouse. I mentioned earlier that I wish I would have treasured my wife as much as I do now.
Sure.
And she's always been amazing, but she's been the one who has always served everybody and waiting for an opportunity for people to see who she really is. And I think as she's been discovering that more and more and recapturing that, I want to see those things come to pass. Marriage is not easy.
Sure.
We don't have a magical marriage, but we do have one that is full of respect and honor. And we really trust the Holy Spirit to do the work in the other one that needs to be done. And so
that's awesome. And 30 years, right?
Yeah. 31 this November.
That's not a direct line going straight up. There's some ups and downs as it's going up, but there's down, we're not perfect, right?
No, but we are being perfected, the scripture says.
Amen.
And so our goal of marriage is that we'll both look more like Jesus. Like, you think about that, like God trusts children to us, right?
Right.
But think about this. He's already dedicated one person whose full-time job is to make sure that you become more like Jesus. Right? That's a spouse. Now, the problem is that often happens by them reminding you how much you're not like Jesus.
Yeah, can be painful.
Right. But the goal is still the same. And I'm grateful that she is helping me to do that. And my desire is that I would be able to help her in that process too.
Definitely. Awesome. That's awesome. Cool. Let's move on. Jeff, if you could go back and give your younger dad self any advice, what would it be?
Stop being so controlling. And I think that would be the case in my life overall. The way that I was trained as a leader and the way that you tend to assert yourself has been, if you're in as the leader, the buck stops here. So everybody is supposed to conform to you. And in fact, over COVID, we had a revelation in Dad Academy. We talk about values, helping dad discover values. And values are not what you want to be. Values are what you are. It's behavior that's rooted in a belief. And I'll try to make the story quick, but my wife, had the TV on. You're looking in my living room right now. I'm usually sitting in the couch, got my computer open. The TV was on. The girls were in here talking about what they're going to make for dinner. And my daughter, my wife would say, well, we should just make some broccoli. And, my daughter was like, well, Dad doesn't like broccoli. That's no secret. Like, there's lots of reasons for that. But then the next day, something came up. And my daughter said something, and I don't even know what they were talking about, but I did overhear my wife say, yeah, that's not your dad's kind of thing. Like, I don't think that, like, he'll want to do that. No big deal.
Sure.
Very next day, similar situation came up, and my wife would say, well, Dad's not going to like that. And I felt God whisper in my own soul, Dad wins. That's the value of the Hamilton family. That everybody in the family knows what you like and what you want, and
that trumps everything.
They arrange. That's right. Yeah. And it broke my heart because I was in the middle of doing an online Dad Academy when we're talking about values. So not all your values are aspirational. Sometimes the Lord lets you see things that need to be changed, and that was an example of probably something that they've had to put up with me. For all of these years, and even changing that behavior is very difficult for me. It's still going to be a much longer, but the first key to solving a problem is being aware of it, that you have one. And I would go back and I would say, let the process play out. Don't try to dictate everything. Because you'll find much more, because then you set unrealistic expectations up that only frustrate them. When the Bible says, fathers, don't exasperate your children, right? I think that's exasperation happens from expectation, which is something that I probably need to tweet out right there. Like I like all those little, Exasperation, our children come from unrealistic expectations in all of our relationships. I wish I was not so controlling and think that I knew best all the time.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Cool. Back into Dad Academy, just to kind of give a clear picture of it. As I was looking into it, you kind of had three sort of columns that you kind of focus on for Dad Academy. I believe one was identity. So if you could kind of describe those three and what that looks like.
Sure. Dad Academy is really broken up into two parts. The first three sessions are about you as a dad, right? It'll talk about help you unpack your values a little bit. It will help you. The second session is about you and your kid's mom, which is in today's society not always your wife, right?
Sure, right?
Blended families and dealing with that is an important process. And the third one deals with you and your family of origin. What was your experience and how did that shape you?
Right.
Then the next session, the next three sessions focus on your job as a kid, as a father, excuse me, which is to build courage, competency, and confidence in your kids. Courage.
That's the ones.
That's right.
About. Yeah, three.
Yeah. So courage is about helping your kids learn to manage risk in their life and to take risk in their life.
Yeah.
If you're going to accomplish something, you have to be able to know how to evaluate it and be willing to step into it, right? And I think a dad's job is to help kids.
Yeah.
But courage really is about learning how to live with heart, because the core in courage is heart. Yeah. It's Latin for heart. And so we help develop heart. We help them develop competency. A dad's job is to make sure his kids have the intelligence that they need. Skills, and both. So some of it is experiential, some of it is emotional intelligence. We don't ever think that when we're training our kids to say thank you when they're little, we're passing on a very important emotional intelligence trait that is going to help them, because success is so based really relationally more so than it is your ability to execute. And then the last one is confidence. Do they know who they are? Do they have a sense of identity? And that's built into the rituals and traditions of your family that say, like, this is who the Hamilton family is. This is what we do. And it's tied into our values. And we have a healthy family culture. And so that session is really about setting a family culture. And then the final session is about how do we help kids mark the different seasons of life that they're in. Maybe you've heard the term rites of passage. But I think that there's even more rites of passage that we can use the events and activities that are already existing to help our kids know that they're moving from one stage to another with new responsibilities and new privileges that help them adjust throughout life, so that they don't, as we see happen so many times in our culture, just eternal adolescents who don't know how to grow up.
Totally. I don't remember what I was reading, but it had to do with the rite of passage, initiation from boyhood to manhood, and that's not necessarily a thing in American culture, but in so many other cultures it exists. And how important it is that somebody actually realizes, okay, now, you're becoming a man, you're becoming a woman. It's time to step up, leave the childish things behind. Yeah. So that's important.
Yeah, we help dads plan that. In fact, one of the resources that we're actually developing right now is a rites of passage planner.
Cool.
To where guys can have a framework by which they can plan. And all this is just about helping dads be intentional. If we know what we're shooting for, then at least we have a target that we're aiming for. In basketball, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right? And so we want to help dads take the right shots, know the difference between a good shot and a bad shot, and just give them some confidence. And what I love about Dad Academy, if I can say one more thing,
please,
is that you always have the videos. Once you join Dad Academy, that's awesome. Two things have started to happen. Not only have we started to see good communities built among guys, we've had guys go back and watch Dad Academy with their wives.
Wow, cool.
And say, hey, let's think about this. What do we want to be? These are the kind of things. And then, like any plan, there's a difference when your kid is 4 and your kid is 8. So every 2 years to have a chance to go, hey, this is what I was shooting at. Because then you at least have a plan to be able to work from. And so with that, I hope that Dad Academy becomes a resource that helps dads be intentional all the way through, not just a one-time experience.
Totally. And doing that with your wife is even more powerful.
Yeah, when we start talking about culture and identity and the things that shaped us as parents, it's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
So
and you can go through it on your own, right? You can go through it, the videos, you have a booklet, but then you can also go to like a kind of a seminar, right?
Yeah, so we do occasionally, about every quarter, I'll do a online cohort.
Okay.
But then for whoever is facilitating, whether it be a church, a school, maybe just one of the things that we've had guys do, like yourself, who just want to reach out to guys in their neighborhoods.
Sure.
Like, it's a great way for pre-evangelism that gathers, like, your kid's soccer club team or whatever. It's a great way to just engage guys in conversation, because conversation is what men really need, because the older you get, believe it or not, the less relationships that men build throughout their life. So finding a reason to gather around a particular purpose is really important. But all the information, go to dadacademy.info. Somebody got any questions, they can hit me up at jeff@dadacademy.info. Awesome. And there's some even free resources that are there. Cool. Follow us on social media, Instagram, dad.academy, TikTok, Dad Academy. We usually do little series that try to encourage dads and try to stay active that way.
Great. Yeah, no, I'm going to put the links in the show notes for this episode. And so let's say, I wanted to get some guys together at our church. You would come to that church or wherever and kind of put it on?
Nope. Okay. Micah, so let's say you're like, hey, Jeff, I like Dad Academy. We got a couple guys at our church that want to do this. Say, great, have them order the material. Okay. I sent you, we'll get a small group leaders guide. But really, by the third session, you just say, hey, this stood out to me.
Sure.
What do you guys think? And then it just starts rolling.
Yeah. So it's really, you're discipling leaders to disciple, and which is awesome, because then
it requires no prep.
Right.
Like, one of our guys who was a pastor at a church was like, by the third session, I stopped pre-watching the videos so that I could take in the information, because I started looking at it like something I had to prepare for.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Right? He goes, it's something that I want to participate in. And the bond that it created, one of the guys, the testimonies that came through it said, he's been in church for 25 years, and he said, this ended up being the most real thing I've ever participated in a church. Cool. Because guys get talking.
Sure. Yeah, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, it does, man.
That's fantastic. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing your story and about Dad Academy and your family. I'm excited because this is really just kind of an intro for myself too, and I want to start to do something with this. And you're not going to lead it; you're going to throw it out to me or someone else. So,
bro, listen, for anybody who does who listens to Rad Dads, we'll get a coupon together to where they can do it for a discount, as long as it's somebody who's connected to Rad Dads who will facilitate it. Because you can facilitate it on Zoom, like they watch the video at home, fill in the workbook, and then you just get on a Zoom call, or you get in your neighborhood at a church or something. Usually you'd do it like a regular small group where you gather together, digest the information at the same time. Cool. There's all types of ways to facilitate it, but as many Rad Dads listeners as want to do it, we'll find out a way to make it, give you a discount. It's normally like $100 a guy, which really, that's what it costs to take a family of four out to dinner.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
So you could change your family's destiny for the cost of dinner.
That's pretty good.
But we want to make it so that nobody has to miss.
Sure.
So whatever, you and I can work something out. We'll put it in the show notes.
Cool.
And we'll see. There's some Rad Dads that want to take it to the next level with a dad plan.
Yeah, sounds great. Jeff, would you mind just praying out for any dads or moms or anybody listening to our podcast today?
Yeah, I would. I'll be glad to do that. Lord, we thank you that none of this catches you by surprise. And the joy of being a follower of Christ is that we don't have to do these things based on our own ability or capacity. We do them because you partner with us and supply whatever it is that we're lacking. So where dads or moms might feel discouraged today, would they sense your favor? Because we're, first of all, sons and daughters of yours. And we don't have to worry about whether you're pleased with us or not. We know that to be true, even if we doubt it ourselves sometime. And that we would give the courage to invest into a process by which we discover who you've made us to be and through which we can become more like your son. We give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
That was the season premiere, and we are so glad you're here. If you have any interest of trying out Dad Academy and creating your very own dad plan, go ahead and click on the link in the show notes, which will also include a 25% discount code for any Rad Dads listeners out there. We invest our time and money in entertainment, strengthening our bodies, and building wealth. But do we have any tools like Dad Academy to improve ourselves as dads? Check it out and give it a try. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you in a couple weeks for the next episode of Rad Dads.